Informational writing lesson number 2. The first step in informational writing is deciding what to write about. Today, we are going to create a list of what we are an expert of. The first steps in informational writing is deciding what to write about. Before you begin writing, you have to choose a topic. It is important to put a lot of thought into your topic you choose because you will need to be an expert on that topic. You are going to pause the video and copy one of the I am an expert in your writing notebook. Make sure you create the picture so that it takes up the whole page. This way you can write many ideas. In science, we're learning about habitats of different regions. I chose the book Swamps and Marshes because it's important that we learn and understand about habitats. And I also know that habitats are in all of our science lessons. Let's listen to Swamps and Marshes together so we can hear an example of expert writing.
Marshes and Swamps by Gail Gibbons. Marshes and swamps are wetlands. They are made up of soaked, wet ground or are covered with shallow water over a muddy bottom. From the mud, plants take root to send their stems, leaves, and flowers up above the water. A marsh is made up of many grassy plants and sometimes a few shrubs. There are no trees or woody plants. Swamps have trees, bushes, and shrubs. Most swamps began as marshes when dead plants began to pile up and decay. In the marsh, more mud was made. As the area became shallower, trees, bushes, and shrubs took root in the mud. They grew to cover much of the marshy area, which then became a swamp. Wetlands are found throughout the world. Some of today's wetlands have existed for about 10,000 years. In the tundra of the far north, marshes form when frozen ground thaws and melts. Sometimes desert marshes form near a spring of water. Marshes and swamps are found in open, wide lowlands along sea coasts and around ponds, lakes, and riverbeds. Marshes and swamps have different kinds of water. Some have fresh water and some have salt water. Others are a mixture of fresh water and salt water. This happens when ocean water mixes with fresh water from ponds, lakes, and rivers. Freshwater marshes. Freshwater marshes form around the edges of lakes, rivers, and ponds. Some are no bigger than a few feet across. Others are huge, as far as you can see. The Everglades in Florida is the biggest freshwater marsh in the world. It is about 4,000 square miles. A freshwater marsh is made up of grassy plants such as reeds, cattails, duckweed, and rushes. It is an ideal place for insects to live. Many different kinds of fish, birds, and other animals are able to live in this kind of environment. Saltwater marshes. Saltwater marshes are found along coastlines. Tides create the water level. At high tide, a large part of the saltwater marsh is underwater. During low tide, much of the land is visible. When the tide rises and enters a saltwater marsh, it brings salt water to the marsh, creating a rich, growing place for the plants and creatures living there. When the tide reverses and the salt water drains back out to sea, it carries bits of dead plants and animals that become food for the fish that live in the ocean. In the United States, most saltwater marshes are found along the East Coast and the Gulf of Mexico. That's because there is a lot of flat, low land near the shores. Saltwater marshes teem with life. The plants, fish, and animals that live there have adapted to the daily rising and falling of the water. Freshwater swamps. Freshwater swamps are always waterlogged. The water levels change with the amounts of rainfall they receive. The trees and other plants will live as long as their roots aren't underwater for long periods of time. Different kinds of plants and animals are found in different swamp locations. In cooler swamps, one might find silver maple, willow, and ash trees growing. Often, moose come to feed on swamp plants. There is a lot of wildlife. In some warm climates, the bald cypress tree grows. Its big base helps to hold it up out of the muddy bottom. Its special roots have stumpy shapes called knees that stick out of the water. This is often a dark, damp wetland. All kinds of sounds are heard. A barred owl screeches. An alligator slaps the water. A bullfrog croaks. Birds peck at the mud and water for their food. Mangrove swamps. Mangrove swamps have a mixture of salt water and fresh water. They are found along tropical sea coasts. Mangrove swamps are named after the mangrove trees that grow there. These trees stand above the water on roots that look like stilts. These tangled roots are shelter for the many creatures that live there. Small fish swim around the roots. In big branches, brown pelicans make their nests. Mangrove trees allow land to form. When dead plants and mud collect around a mangrove's tree roots, soil builds up. Bit by bit, an island begins to take shape. It will become home for other plants and animals. Each marsh and swamp is an ecosystem, which is a place where plants and animals interact as a natural unit. Marshes and swamps are vital storage places for one of Earth's most precious resources, water. While storing large amounts of water, these areas reduce the chance of flooding in other places. Also, their plant life helps to stop the erosion of the surrounding land. Many kinds of plants and animals need wetlands to survive. When wetlands are filled with dirt to create more land to build on, they are destroyed forever. Many acres of marshes and swamps have already been destroyed. When marshes and swamps disappear, so do countless numbers of plants and animals. Many people are working to save our wetlands from destruction. In some places, boardwalks have been built over marshes and through swamps. That way people can walk into the natural beauty of swamps and marshes without disturbing the plants and animals that live there. Marshes and swamps are wonderful places to explore. They have some of the most unusual landscapes in the world. They are home to many interesting creatures. Many of these strange and beautiful places have been made refuges and preserves to protect their unusual plant and animal life. For the visitor, they are always full of surprises. Wetlands to visit. Wetlands to visit. Look at the map. You'll notice Canada, the United States, and Mexico. You'll see Alaska and Hawaii. The red dots indicate beautiful wetlands to visit. You can also visit your local wetlands. Do you know where your local wetlands are? More about wetlands. Slow the pace, take your time and read this page and learn more about the beautiful wetlands. Enjoy!
Since all of us are different, we are all experts in different topics. So today, I want everyone to create an expert list in their notebooks. I want you to put a lot of thought into your list and to think about the things that you've learned from home and at school. When you are finished, you will upload your expert list at the bottom of this lesson.